Hey, welcome to Talking Shop. We've got a text about non-salty salt and non-discipling disciples. Is that a real? I don't know if that's a real thing.
I don't think that's a real thing.
We'll work through that. But yeah, Luke chapter 14, 25 to 35. It's a great text, and we'll get after it.
Leave away, spit out my Lord in every way. Yet I'm still welcome
Very much. All right.
in the arms.
I'm not opposed to it.
Oh no! Just because he gave you a weird face, now you're like, oh, I'm not sure.
Totally your side, man.
Call God
We still be friends.
That
was fine.
Yet I'm still
All right. Let's get after this. Luke chapter 14, 25 to 35. Big crowd is hanging out with Jesus.
They like him.
They like him.
a likable
He turns to them and he says things that they do not like.
Yeah, hate your life.
Well, we don't know. We actually don't know if they don't like it or not, but that's
Right.
the intent.
Well,
I
so-
actually think that's the intent.
Hate your. What does he say? I mean, it is pretty brutal.
He says hate your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially.
Or
Yeah, but he starts mellower than
Starts
that.
mellow.
First, hate father. Okay, there's
Yeah,
lots of people who have
hate
daddy
your dad,
issues.
hate your
your
mom.
dad.
Right.
Hate your mom. All right, that's pretty
Right.
easy. She was a disciplinarian.
Hate your wife.
Hate your wife.
Some of
You know,
them,
I've been
that's
married for
easy
20
for you.
years. That's
Yeah.
good. Hate your children at times.
At times.
Hate your
Little
brother
idiot.
and sister. That's what they're
Sure.
made for, according
Yeah.
to Proverbs. So, yes, even his own life. Well, who doesn't hate his life at one time or another, right?
Yeah. And if you don't do these things, he says to this crowd that loves him and walks with him, what's the ramification?
Can't be my
No
disciple.
Yeah.
You
are
can
not-
follow me. You can think I'm a great guy, but you can't be my disciple.
Yeah, you are not able. You cannot
Yeah.
be my disciple, right? Shocking word. So I guess, yeah, preaching this text, overall, you would see it as this is definitely a cost of discipleship kind of conversation, right? What is it? What does it cost? And that's how the next section goes out, like counting the cost, figuring it
Right.
out. What is required of you to be a disciple of
Yeah.
Jesus Christ? It's not what you think. Maybe it's
Well, it's you can't have life. You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? You can't have the life the way you want it and have life the way that Christ intends it to be.
that is required for a disciple.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So you got to pick. It's either your way or it's His way. There's no middle ground, if you will.
Is this
in
kind
that.
of a first commandment deal? I mean, you're either going to love God or you're going to love something else.
Sure.
Relationally.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you just are. You're going to love something.
You're gonna have some. Well, so yeah.
Something's going to be
this
on the
is-
top of
that's
the
good.
pot.
This is
First
last
commandment.
week, right? You
Yeah.
can't love God and mammon.
mammon,
So
right.
this is continuing.
And this is
that
definitely like
track.
he said. I think in the large catechism, Luther says everyone has a God.
Right.
Everyone, right? So because that is where you find your security, your identity. It's what you trust in at the end of the day. There's going to be something. It might not be the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It might not be our Lord Jesus Christ, but there's something that's your God. And I don't care
Well,
if
and
you're
he
an
goes-
atheist
yeah.
or
He goes through the
Christian.
big three, right? It's going to either be a relationship, it's going to be something you own, or it's going to be the power that you have.
Right.
And he basically goes after all three of them in this
Yeah.
thing. It's just
That's right. That's right. So yeah, I think maybe that's a good way to cast this as that. If my Hebrew brain is right, that the notion of the first commandment is to have no other gods before me is
Right.
the language that it's nothing rises up to stand eye to eye with
Yeah.
with Yahweh. That
Yeah.
that this is
and that's always
this
the problem
is-
for the children of Israel, all the way
Right.
through the Old Testament.
This is also Jacob I
Hard
loved,
to-
Esau I hated, right? In the sense that he ends up blessing Esau significantly, actually. But the priority changes, right? Jacob becomes the highest priority. So the hate is not a denounce and never have anything to do with again. The hate is exactly what you said, of it cannot rise
cannot be,
above
yeah.
what the actual priority needs to be, right?
So let's go. So he lays this out, pretty stark, shocking, and then he goes into sort of telling some
many
stories, some
parables.
ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of like parables, right? But it says, it starts with, which of you, if you're going to build a tower, right? And so you can think of this, and you could
Remodel your house.
Yeah, you
right?
could
Let's
do
go
it
that
any
way,
way
since
you
I'm doing
want.
that.
Yeah, you're doing that, right? Anything you do like that. And
Putting up
what's-
your solar panels.
Yeah, put it right. You're going to what is he calling them to do? Or not is he? He's just saying this is what you're going to do.
Yeah, he says nobody's going to start a job without first sitting down and figuring out what it's going to take to finish the job.
Right.
Right? Because otherwise, and he actually goes into the ridicule, but I think the ridicule is even within yourself.
Yeah.
Of, this is ridiculous that it's taken me 5 years to do this job that would have taken 1 if I would have paid attention to the cost of it, right? If I would have paid attention to what actually went into it.
Right.
So
the first one has to do with building a tower, something like that. So some sort of building project. You say you're going to sit down, you're going to count the costs. It's kind of basic. This is what your grandma taught you, right? Or your grandpa. Like this is you figure
Good
out what it's going to
budgeting.
cost. Therefore, you know whether you can go forward with this or not, right? Because you don't want to start it and then say, "Yeah, I'm going to have a half-built tower
Right.
because I can't finish this." Then you're ridiculed everyone else. And I like what you said, Matt, that ridicule is internal as well.
Yeah.
Or at least we can see it that way
Yeah,
fairly easy,
yeah.
right?
And again, that ridicule then leads to dejection, which leads to even more failure because now I don't even feel like I can finish it, let alone whether or not I have the ability to, right? So it leads you farther down the road of getting away from the reality.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he lays that one out, and then he backs it right up, and the next one he tells is not about building a tower, but about what? Tim, what do we got going on?
Going to war.
Going to war.
Yeah, it's a king, right? So king wants to go to war, and he's going to decide if he can, with his 10,000, beat the guy with his 20,000.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's got 10,000 chariots and the guy has 20,000 farmers,
That's right.
maybe he can do it.
Or Spartans.
Or 10,000 Spartans against 20,000 normal
Anybody.
Greeks, right? Yeah, yeah. Maybe it's going to work. If he's got 10,000 against 20,000, they're equal.
Right.
Still might work depending on what kind of general he is and what the plan is
what the
and
plan
the
is,
terrain
terrain,
and
all
blah
that
blah blah.
stuff.
Yep.
But if he can't, he's going to go ask for peace because he's probably not suicidal. I mean, that's
Yeah.
Right.
the
The
gist of it.
Which is actually weird in this parable because he's the one who initiates the war. It's not a war coming to him. It's him going to initiate
Going out
the
to
war
meet, yeah.
and then going, maybe I should see if I can get some favorable terms on this before
Right.
I actually go
Which
into
I
battle.
think this, now I could be wrong here, but I think this was like kind of common with more local lordships and things like that. Hey, you got somebody threatening, we're going to send our army out, their
Yeah.
army out, and then you realize we can't beat them. We'll still make a show of force, but then go out to the battlefield to make terms of peace.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you see this even so. I'm thinking of movies like Braveheart, right? Where
Oh,
even
yeah,
if
sure.
even if they think that they can beat the other side, they still meet in the middle and say, "Let's figure out how not to do this war."
Yeah.
Right? And of course, that doesn't always work, but.
well,
yeah,
if you have William Wallace, you're going to go to war.
That's the idea
Correct.
of counting this. We don't want to fight, so let's figure out a way out of it.
But the language is all the same, right? That if
Although,
you
I mean,
need to
these
be able
two
to
in the
count
middle, we
this.
kind of get these two in the middle. I mean, but the one at the beginning, hate basically all the important people in your life, and then renounce all, or leave, right? That's the Greek word for it, leave, renounce, all that you have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bookended with these extremes
Yeah.
that, I don't know, don't make much sense,
So let's
honestly.
do this. I think maybe a good way, I was thinking about it, is that I like that picture of bookending, that it begins with something very harsh, right? This hating all these things, and then ends with that, you got to renounce, you got to separate yourself from all of these things, right? Otherwise, you're not worthy. You're not able to be my disciple. And in the middle, the two stories are just about counting the cost. And so what he's doing is he's saying, this is the cost, right? the discipleship is total. I guess is the way I kind of like see it. Like it's not.
It's an all life thing.
It's an all. Yeah, it's a totality thing. Like it will cost you everything.
Yeah.
Like to be a disciple isn't. It's not kind of like it's not like a country club where you show up when you want to, you get the little benefits you want, the perks, you move on. This is life encompassing. It's everything.
Well, we've been seeing this for week after week after week, actually, in what the pericopes have been giving us. This is all about priorities. Because what he's saying is, and there are other places where you could go to where he talks about, gaining those fathers and mothers in his kingdom, right?
Sure.
So it's not a matter of losing out on those things. Yeah. It's a matter of changing your focus from this life into the next.
Well, and I think like in our communities, because we all live essentially in a similar, demographic. It looks so much like, yes, God's important. When nobody's sitting in our pews doesn't think God's not important.
Good point.
Except they go out and they're weak. Just from a pastoral standpoint, I look at kind of the way they live and some of the choices they make, and it's like, wait a minute, it's confusing.
It's a little bit. I've been going through the prophets actually with some of my people, and it's a little bit like. What I see is the picture of Israel before they were exiled into Syria or Assyria, which is that God was a part of their lives. If you went and asked them, "Do you believe in God?" They'd be like, "Of course." Yeah. But alongside
all these other things,
alongside all these other things, and if something happens, do I go to Him? Do I, is He my first stop, kind of thing? And so again, it's about priorities. It's I think you hit it on the head.
That thing to rise to the level. No other gods before me. So
maybe that's why he uses Messiah, right?
And
he uses that hate because he wants to emphasize the depth of how important God is to be in your life.
Well, again, and I think hate in the Old Testament is an issue of priorities. So, for instance, Jacob and Esau. It's one rises above the other and maintains that status. Right. There was reconciliation between Jacob and Esau, and still God says, I hated Esau, and I love Jacob.
Right. And so then then after that, it tidies it up
with the salty tag.
With the saltiness, right? Yeah. And this language of if salt loses its saltiness, how is it restored? Basically, non-salty salt is good for what?
Nothing.
Right.
It's not good to destroy a field, and it's not good to salt up your poo.
That's right. And basically, the thing is, it's worthless, or it's because it's not a thing. Like
it doesn't exist.
There's no such thing as non-salty salt.
Yeah.
And so I think that actually is. Maybe in a twisted way, this is a good way to bring the gospel into this text with your people. It's like. You are the disciples of our Lord Jesus Christ. You are baptized believers of God. Do you believe? Yes, I believe in Him. You can't not be salty. That's not who you are. And so it's a proclamation of declaring who they are and encouraging them to then go ahead and live like that, because that's actually who you are. Identity kind of thing.
So here's the interesting thing about this, though. We've always looked at this text. We look at it in the context of Matthew's Sermon on the Mount, where he says, "You are salt."
Yeah.
But I actually think in this case, Jesus is talking about himself as salt. In other words, he came in and he's got all these crowds following him, and he says, if you don't do these things, then you can't be my disciple. And basically what he says, if I don't come in and change your life, if I don't come in and have an impact on your priorities, what good am I? If I don't actually do something for you, I'm no good to you at all. If all I do is become part of your life, if all I do is come in and be just a little more flavor, if you will, what good am I?
Yeah.
But instead, I'm salt. And therefore, I'm always going to change these realities. If you follow me, you're going to hate father and mother and,
I'm going
wife
to
and
destroy your
child.
field and freshen up your
That's
dung
right.
pile. And
Because that's what salt
that's what
does.
it will always do.
Salt
yeah.
will do what salt does.
Yeah,
Because that's what you
and,
do, yeah.
And so I think this is actually Jesus bringing it around and going, what do you think I'm here for?
Right.
Except to change all of this
Right.
and actually make an impact in your lives.
Right.
And of course, because he is salt and salt doesn't lose its saltiness, it's not going to fade away. It's not going to.
yeah.
It's not going to go away.
Yeah.
He is going to do what he came to
Kingdom
do.
of heaven is like.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit like a
good stuff.
kingdom parable without
Yeah,
actually.
without being a
and
kingdom.
I think that he who has ears to hear actually follows that up because that's how he follows a lot of his parables.
Sure.
You
sure.
who understand this,
Hey, he's
understand
making-
it.
yeah.
You're not the salt. I'm the salt, and I'm
yeah.
going to change you.
Yeah. And salt will be salty.
And salt will be
Yeah,
salty.
it will do that
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. I think there's a lot of good things there. Lots of takeaways. Check out craftofpreaching.com. There'll be good articles there that'll help your preaching as well. And looking at this text in particular, of course. Continue to like and subscribe. Tell your friends about us. And God bless your preaching.